Hello, and welcome back to another edition of Rent Money, Week 14, otherwise known as Feast Week, Rivalry Week, Thanksgiving Week. Can I go and grab some ice? Can I do anything to get out of the house week? Maybe if you're at some relatives or in laws' place, you got to get a fresh breather. Uh, Check the betting apps, see how you're doing, trying not to look like too much of a degen. But we're back this week. We got the typical crew, the A team, some people call it. Old Chisholm's here. Texas Pete. D-Man was on last week. I think Texas Pete's got some words for him later on the episode. Excited for that. We're going to talk about last week. A lot of great results, upsets, the SEC who, maybe is what people are saying. Before we get to all that, we have to let you in on a few of our presenting sponsors. The first being the podcast formerly known as the Box Out Boys. That's right. During Feast Week, we got the Maui Invitational going. A lot of good college basketball. It's that time of the year. And on the Pop Off Podcast Network, you're going to be getting your college basketball fill with two of our best, Skylar Reesberg and Spencer Clark. They're going to be breaking it all out for you week in, week out. Not as cool of names as these guys, Chisholm, Texas Pete, and Running Back Jones, but they do a pretty good job over there. So go and listen to them. Go check them out. The other is going to be Movember. Old Chisholm, real quick, why don't you go ahead and tell us about Movember? Only a few days left. Just because the month of November is ending doesn't mean that men's mental health awareness is over. So if you're waiting for maybe a Christmas check or something, the donation period is not over. But I think the fundraising, the blitz, we only got around 5 days left. Is that right, Old Chisholm?
Yes, you would be correct there. I will say that Giving Tuesday typically happens the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. I think that's still ringing true this year, so that will fall outside of the jurisdiction of Movember technically, but we're going to go ahead and count it, loop it in there. So I'm kind of considering the Mad Dash to last until about the 4th of December. But yeah, we've talked about it the last few episodes here now. Movember, it is quite simply one of the better organizations I've been affiliated with, helping to make sure that we're targeting the 3 main causes of premature deaths in men, being suicide prevention, testicular and prostate cancer awareness, and just having better tooling and better funding to be able to target the illnesses earlier and have more preventative measures, keeping dudes living longer, better lives.
More feet sweets.
More feet sweets. We've been doing this for a couple of years now, I think since 2020. Raised a couple of grand every year here and there, just trying to give back. Very proud of, I guess, my manhood. I know most others are as well, but it's pretty cool to, kind of let yourself open up and just, share a little bit more love than you might normally with the homies. So definitely check it out. Appreciate any and all support we've gotten thus far and any and all support that we will get. Team JV forever. Check us out on the Movember page or through any of my social links.
Hell yeah, brother. If you hit a parlay, pull that money out, maybe carve off a little bit for Movember. Texas Pete's also got a great timely ad with a wonderful sponsor, and the week of Thanksgiving, it couldn't be a better time for them to get into our inbox and get a little ad read here. Thanks for presenting this one. Go ahead, Texas Pete.
Yep. So we got a new sponsor, and we're really excited to have them on board. They couldn't have come on at a better time. The holiday season, when it comes up, the first thing that comes to my mind is going to be college football, and the second thing is going to be what are we going to be eating, and this is what these guys excel at. So that secret ingredient that takes any dish from good to great? It's French's original crispy fried onions. The crispy golden crunch that adds irresistible flavor to everything from green bean casserole to burgers to salads and even snack time. Made with real onions and seasoned to perfection, French's crispy fried onions bring that delicious savory crunch to every bite. They're the perfect topper for any recipe or just a tasty treat all on their own. Want to turn an ordinary meal into something special? We'll go ahead and add a handful of French's original crispy fried onions and watch the magic happen. Find them in the aisle with the canned vegetables or seasonings and get ready to crunch your way to a flavor-packed meal. French's, flavor you can't resist. I'll tell you guys what, Thanksgiving week doesn't get much better than that. This is the college football playoffs of food. And no green bean casserole is complete without French's original crispy fried onions. If they're not on my GBC, then I don't fucking want them. If you moved out of town for work and aren't traveling back home to your mother's house for the holiday, then you need some French's original crispy fried onions to make your sorry Thanksgiving meal a lot less sorry. It's an easy way to add extra love to your dish for Thanksgiving, Friendsgiving, or any holiday gathering this season. Thank you to French's for sponsoring this week's episode of Rent Money.
Come on. It's basically French's Super Bowl this week. I mean, I wonder what percent of their product is moved during Thanksgiving. And so if you're in the, if you're in the aisle, you got a couple of different options for your crispy fried onions. There's only one choice, and it's French's. I'm excited for Thanksgiving. Green Bowl casserole, as Texas Pete mentioned, is my personal favorite. And I couldn't put a larger endorsement or a AAA stamp of approval on French's fried onions.
Couldn't agree more.
Woo! Well, it's a very special day, ladies and gentlemen. This day only comes around once a year, and it's celebrated by all three of us, but it's mainly about one of us. Old Chisholm, happy birthday, my friend. Another year around the sun.
I can't. We're gonna rip some impromptu "I love you" bands for Thanksgiving week, right? I know we didn't really fill faults in on that, but I feel like you picked up what we were putting down last week.
I think we need a little bit more love on this episode. Last week we brought in one of our dearest friends, D-Man. Like we said, he's been with us since the lunch tables. But we know D-Man. We know D-Man well, and he came on, and it was a pleasure to have him. But it's just a funny juxtaposition between, D-Man and Texas Pete's mantras and their general disposition. So it was good to bring him on, while Texas Pete was out surfing the waves, getting out there on the cruise ship. But we're glad he's back as well.
Yeah, so I wasn't able to tap in live to the taping of the pod last week, so I had to listen to it a couple days later when it came out. Boy, was I shocked. In my own podcast that I give my time, my effort, my energy, I'm just getting dunked on. It didn't feel great, especially with someone who I formerly called a friend. I went to a Jimmy Buffett concert with this guy. Vibes don't get more chill than that. And then he just turns around and just stabs me in the back when I'm on a cruise. It was unacceptable, but you know what? That's a reality of being a public figure such as ourselves. When you put yourself out there, not everyone's going to agree with you. Not everyone's going to like you, and that's fine. But you're wrong. And he was wrong last week. But hoping to prove him wrong the only way that I know how, and that's going to be excelling at this board. You could say it's somewhat of a rivalry developing, and I think that pairs well in the rivalry weekend this week.
Absolutely. Yeah. Speaking of which, how was taking a load off, Texas Pete? Cruise ships, are they for you?
So I was a little bit skeptical going into the cruise. I went when I was a little youngin, but now that I'm as an adult, I wasn't sure what to expect. The drinks were great. The food was pretty good too. Would I go back on another one? Probably yes. Would I pay full price? Probably not. But if someone's throwing together a group trip with a solid crew and they're saying, you know what, let's go on a cruise down to Grand Cayman, I'm probably putting my hand up and vouching for him. So,
for sure. Were there people repping any team colors, any college sports addicts that you happen to bump into and spark up a conversation over your love of college football?
Yeah. I didn't get to talk too much shop, but there was a sports bar on the boat, on the ship, on the vessel. And that was definitely flooded with all kinds of colors. And I was just judging people by seeing the logo that they're wearing on their clothes. Gave a couple I'm sorries as I was passing there. If I saw someone wearing a shitty team.
Kyle McCord fan, huh? Me too.
I wish there wasn't. I wish that would be an immediate sit down. But the bar was packed. There was no tables there when it was game day on Saturday. So college football runs deep, even when you're on vacation.
Even on international waters.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Yeah, great trip. Great to be back, though. Miss the boys.
We missed you. We missed you. I won't lie. It's always good to get a little bit of D-Man in your life. Don't get me wrong, but that much negativity and pessimism can only get you so far. And I don't know how he hasn't gone completely insane. He loves this scene. You guys ever see Office Space?
Oh yeah.
The scene where he's talking to him about how he's got people skills. I'm fully convinced that that's just D-Man personified in a movie character.
Permission to be a little vulnerable right here during Movember.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. Ron Livingston's always been a man crush of mine. You know, if he walked in a room and was picking up all the ladies, I'd say, you know what? I get it. I get that guy, Ron. He's got, you know, an affable characteristics to him. I like him a lot in Swingers as well. So just gonna go out on a limb and say Ron Livingston, one of my favorite guys out there. Not the most utilized player. You know, he's not going to be your all-star, your MVP, but wonderful utility player in a good ensemble comedy.
Okay.
I was gonna say too. He does a pretty damn good job as Lewis Nix in Band of Brothers. He's just sneaky in there.
Well, Chisholm, it is your birthday. I don't want to bury the lead. I know we already wished you a quick happy one, but any traditions or any things that you would like to just, you know, the floor is yours. It's your birthday. Speak from the heart.
Yeah. I think today is, I mean, it always falls around Thanksgiving, and more often than not, you know, I'm back home. Blackout Wednesday is kind of around. And so that's typically the day that I get to let loose. First and foremost is anyone who knows me on a Blackout Wednesday in Des Moines, Iowa. I typically, you know,
Aye, Captain.
I sit my white ass down and I listen, get ready for Black Friday. But I feel like my biggest thing lately has been just trying to maintain my relationship with Mrs. Chisholm and noticing the stress that gets placed upon her whenever, you know, I take Black Wednesday in a literal sense. We've kind of switched it up. You know, we're switching out liquor for Guinness. You know, we're splitting G's and not how we used to.
Okay, I love it. I love it.
We're not really into the Charlie Sheen scene anymore. However, at one point in time, you know, banging 7-gram rocks and finishing them. No, I've never done that. That would have been cool though. But I mean, I might sneak out, play 9 or 18 this week. It's a little chilly today. It's only 68 here in Austin, Texas. So
I don't know what age is too old for Blackout Wednesday, but I think we passed that threshold. It seems to slip by us within the past handful, you know, less than a handful of years. But I got to say, I miss it. It was definitely like a pivotal part of, you know, as a young adult, you know, in your college years, going back to the hometown, getting crazy the night before Thanksgiving. And it's not happening anymore. Everyone's moved away. Their parents have moved away. So you're not like reconvening in the same location. It's sad. But,
you know the people of Des Moines,
really appreciate the time you did spend.
The people of Des Moines, Iowa, they don't move anywhere. They're for lifers. That's first and foremost. As a guy that was previously on the Blackout Wednesday committee, actually chairman the previous years, I would say that, you know, it was with great disappointment that I had to relinquish my role, you know, on that committee this year for the first time. And you know what? It's a machine. You know, the machine continues to churn. You know, the dogs will hunt. There will be people before me and beyond me that will celebrate this holiday. It surely is a good one. Speaking of birthdays, really quick, are you guys like office birthday people, or like if it's your birthday and you're in the office, you kind of just like keep that to yourself? You know, hope nobody uncovers it because you just don't want that extra attention or like that extra like kind of awkwardness maybe that comes along with that. If you have a work crew that, let's just say, you're not always trying to do too much with.
100%. I personally have always believed that my birthday was more so a celebration for my mother, in the sense that we should be celebrating her, right? Not me. I didn't do anything. I just kind of popped out. She's the one that, you know, did all the work. So Jolene, if you're listening, if you're around, God bless you. You're a capital S saint, and appreciate you for you know, pumping me out into the world. Keith, appreciate, you know, the work that you put in.
Pumping as well, baby.
Yep.
But I gotta say, you know, there is a little bit of you, even if you don't, you know, you don't tell anybody at work it's your birthday, and so how are they gonna know it's your birthday? You don't expect anything, but then you clock out for the day, and you're kind of like, damn, nobody wished me happy birthday, huh? Like you expected them to have it on their calendar. You're kind of like, wow, maybe it's a can't win. Well, hey, that's some good banter there to start off the podcast episode. I don't know about these guys. It is getting a little colder out. I know it's still pretty nice down there in Austin, but it's time to start wearing pants and hoodies. But you know who lost their pants last weekend? Just straight up lost their pants. The
Kalen
SEC,
DeBoer.
Kalen DeBoer and the SEC. The SEC is pantsless. They got pants on multiple levels. All for the last week, we heard about Indiana not being a team that's worthy of a college football playoff opportunity. And we can talk about the Indiana-Ohio State game a little bit as well. And Indiana didn't go ahead and necessarily prove those doubters wrong. But I think at the same time, all those on the SEC side of the lines, they're out there wiping their ass a little bit. You know what I mean? It's just all three of the teams that they were touting all took L's. Ole Miss for one. You know, you have Bama, who's getting absolutely shellacked by a mediocre at best OU team. A&M is down to the wire, right, and ends up taking an L. So it's just it was just a banner weekend for those of us, including myself, that are kind of SEC haters on some level.
Yeah, I think the SEC is hanging on to the strength of schedule argument with every single ounce of strength that they have in their fingertips. This year, more than most, you're seeing cannibalization of a conference, and the SEC is doing it entirely and wholeheartedly to themselves with a little bit of help from Notre Dame against A&M week 1. But outside of that, it's really only been the SEC beating the SEC. It's not like you have other conferences coming in and, ruining things for them. It's like, no, actually Vanderbilt is, and Kentucky is, and I guess Oklahoma. Arkansas. Like all of the teams that are middle of the road, this is typically what we're used to seeing in the Big Ten, which, for better or worse, the SEC is always going to be the ones that are, for lack of a better phrase, they're the ones getting jerked off when it comes to the talent, when it comes to how good they are on paper versus how good they actually are. Like ESPN and all of these, people that are so-called experts are, going in and saying, oh, this kid is, decommitting from Georgia State and he's going to Georgia now. Well, surely he's 600 spots higher than we had him previously ranked if Georgia wants him, and they're completely changing narratives. Goalposts are being moved almost as frequently as they were earlier this year in Vanderbilt. But yeah, it's a weird scenario. It's a weird place to be, but I'll be goddamned if it's not one of the more entertaining seasons, if not the most entertaining season of college football I've probably watched in my life so far.
Here is, some of my initial thoughts around the CFP and the 12 team. And, it changes every week. This is our first year, guys, going through this all together. And it's the first year we've been so focused on teams ranked 8 through 14. Like in the past, those teams are kind of an afterthought.
Yep.
And I think something that we're all realizing is that, when you're the 8th through, let's say, 14th best team in the country, you don't run the table. You don't just win out every week. Like losses happen, and that's just part of football when you're, an upper middle echelon team. And so we're acting surprised a little bit when these playoff, hopefuls lose. But really, it shouldn't come necessarily as a surprise that the 10th ranked team in the country or 12th ranked team in the country is taking an L against, a tough conference opponent. Like that shit just kind of happens and takes place. And while I don't want to underreact to those losses, because they do happen, it's just, I think we're just putting a greater emphasis or we notice it a lot more than in years past, where if that weekend happens, like, oh, kind of a busy weekend in the middle tier of the SEC, but things up top really didn't change. Ohio State, Oregon, whoever else you kind of want to put in the, the 3 or 4 spot is still, we'd be arguing like ND versus Miami, right? That would be more of the argument. Like who could win better?
I think you guys hit it on the head there. So for the listeners back at home, here's 3 teams out of the SEC that lost last week that were definitely in the playoff mix. That'd be Florida beating Ole Miss, Auburn beating A&M in an awesome overtime game, and then Oklahoma slacking Alabama to pretty much put the nail in their season.
Well, I had ESPN on before this. They said Alabama's 37% chance of making the playoffs still.
37.
I'm not entertaining that. Not one bit.
I don't want to, but based on the way that things have gone, you almost have to, because
you might as well
Texas
just set the college
A&M
football playoffs at the beginning of the fucking season then, because if that's where you're going to be weighing everything on,
Let's go,
from your fucking
TP.
recruits
Let's
to
go,
your
TP.
roster. Like, you got to go out there and win the games. I get it. Okay, yes, you can get a loss and still get in. That makes sense if you're taking the top 12 teams. Yes, you can have 2 losses if you have, good strength of schedule losses against other similar college football playoff-esque teams. But if you drop to 3, maybe it's just not in the cards for you, man, especially with an unranked team in there.
Here we go, Texas
Pete. If you're continually playing these top-tier teams and you're losing to them, like if you have 2 or 3 top 10 losses, you're clearly not cut out to be in that, population of teams. So it's like, what do you expect? Are we just going to be playing fucking football on spreadsheets? Because that's what these nerds at ESPN are telling me when they say Alabama has a 37% chance of making the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And we've been banging this horn, right, Texas people? We've been banging that drum. But here we go. Who are you going to put in above Alabama? These are just the teams behind them right now in the AP poll, which has been pretty indicative of the CFP this year. And it's a year of a lot of parity. So these are the 2 lost teams behind them. Arizona State, Iowa State, Tulane, BYU, UNLV, and Army.
I mean,
does that make it a little...
1 loss, though, right?
Army's, yes, 2 loss or less. 2 loss or less.
I mean, you can't, I understand that Army only has 1 loss, but we all saw that game against Notre Dame. They're not ready, nor will they ever be. The size disadvantage that the service academy schools have in the trenches will always prevent them from being able to go out and compete with a Power 4 school. You're not going to have a guy that's 6'7", 320 pounds going through basic training. That would be hell.
Yeah, and I don't want to jump ahead of this, but just to put a fucking flag in it for who we stand up for on this podcast, I'm going to put Clemson spread on my card over South Carolina, because if South Carolina wins that game, I think they're going to be maybe the 3-loss team that would be most likely to be represented out of the SEC and jump that 2-loss Clemson team. I mean, there's a world where we could get 3 ACC teams in. I know it's hard to believe right now, but if Clemson wins this weekend, SMU and Miami both went out and go to the the championship game.
Yeah.
Who are you keeping out? You're going to keep out the 1-loss regular season SMU or Miami team that loses? That's a bad precedent. You're going to jump Alabama or an Ole Miss or basically Alabama or Ole Miss over Clemson.
Here's a fun thought experiment. What if they were to decide on or create it so that you could decide a conference champion before an actual conference championship game, and those teams just automatically move in, and then the conference championship is the 2 and the 3, or the 3 and the 4 seed if they're not already locked in for the playoffs, so that those on the bubble teams have a chance to prove themselves. It's tough because in basketball you have so many games. If you go on a run and you're in your conference tournament, you can sneak in, but in football, you're either already in and you're just playing a conference championship game because they don't matter anymore outside of the top 3 or 4 conferences.
That one might get a little confusing. I like the thought though, Chisholm. I like you're just brainstorming here. Make those teams play for second place. I think that gets trickier when you have an SMU or Miami situation, or a situation where the ACC or Big 12 is maybe a 1-bid league that year.
Yeah. But I don't know how you can say the Big 12 has been nothing short of entertaining.
Absolutely.
It's weird football. As a Big 10 man, I'm not used to watching offenses have fun. I'm used to watching offenses just try to get 3-yard runs and then rip a draw and then have a tight end or a halfback screen go for another 4 and
real football.
Down. Yeah. The way that God made the sport to be played. We don't get to see a whole lot of that in the Big 12, but makes for entertaining football.
We talked about this as an epidemic that's spreading the nation. And no, it's not horny quarterbacks. I know we already covered that. It started with Ole Miss. I'm talking about teams rushing the field early, or teams more like fans. I can't stand it. We had a bad one, Arizona State, the other day, rushing the field. Rushing the field. Got whoa, hello. But we had the head coach Kenny Dillingham. He was losing his absolute marbles out there, surrounded by a bunch of prepubescent Arizona State kids. And holy cow, I just cannot deal with these situations. Everybody, just hold your damn horses for a single second and then rush the field.
I think it's a mental play. I know I touched on it a couple weeks ago, but like just having the opposing team who's clearly about to lose, all you have to do is kneel it out, have to wait on the field for another 12 minutes while the opposing 15 minutes while the opposing team is celebrating. Like, I think obviously there's no repercussions coming from it. Like, so if you're not going to police it, why not go ahead and try and take, a mental shot at your, rival or against a big upset who you're playing.
But where do we draw the line, Texas Pete? What happens when we start getting rush fans on the field with a minute 30?
I think that's absurd. That is too much.
I'm just kind of teasing.
I don't know. I'm all for the integrity of the field, Storm. You got to do it on the last play. Do you have to wait till the clock strikes 0? Not in my eyes, but you have to kneel the ball to end the game. So, like, you can rush on afterwards. Otherwise, it's just a total mess. But I will say, when they do rush the field early, it gets clicks, it gets trashed, and everybody's watching it. And then
did you
flip
see
over
this?
To another channel, come back 10 minutes later, and they're still on there.
I think Old Chisholm saw the video. I don't know if Texas Pete. You should look it up. It's pretty funny. This game's over. You just saying this game's over. It's already over. They're like, no, there's 1 second left. It's like, can't be saying that.
He's like, that's fucking bullshit. That's fucking bullshit. You're like, Kenny.
Kenny,
it didn't like this.
If you would have just timed this up a little better, we wouldn't be in this problem. You guys absolutely fumbled the bag to let there be a second left on the play clock to begin with.
Just a wild. It wasn't as bad as the clip of Sark when he went off on that guy for like telling him not to run on the field. Like that, of all of the weird clips of coaches, that's got to be top 3, and it's not 3, it's 1 or 2. I think the only one that could ever. No, that's number 1. I don't think there's a weird clip out there. That one's just fun.
And here's, like I guess one parting thought on that. I mean, Arizona State is probably the hottest team in the country right now.
Cam Scatabo is a unit.
I think Kansas has something to say to that.
Kansas, first team ever to win 3 straight AP top 25 games from a losing record.
I would say Kansas, in the hypothetical that Chisholm posed earlier, Kansas would be a good contender for that, saying getting hot at the right time. You obviously can beat decent teams, but your beginning of season play kind of hindered any kind of postseason hopes you've had. That'd be the poster child for that base case.
One last thing before we move on to the Big Ten game. Some were saying leading up to it, game of the year. Shout out to the Auburn, Florida fan bases. I mean, those are 2 teams that are going to be finishing around 6-6, 7-5. Both sold out crowds, completely invested, completely into the game. When they say it means more in the SEC, there is some truth to that because those were sold out, 80,000 plus stadiums, rocking and rolling, supporting their teams. And that's what leads to a great atmosphere that can then lead to upsets like over A&M and Ole Miss. So those were fun games to watch. It's more fun to watch football games in packed stadiums. And this time of the year, you see far too many games with 25% of the stadium full. You're not going to see that in the SEC very often. So give them kudos there. Indiana traveled to Ohio State Columbus, and honestly, they did not perform how they needed to perform. They needed to play mistake-free football. They did not do that. Cignetti's pompous ass finally had to go up against a top-tier opponent, and I was kind of happy on some level, even though, we root for the underdog here, the little guy. To see Cignetti have to eat some of his own words because this guy's been walking around like he's the fucking mayor of the Big Ten the last few weeks. Those are my initial thoughts. Did you guys get a chance to watch this game? I know Texas Pete was maybe on the high seas.
I was there. I was watching it. Started it was the morning slate, which is never not going to be weird, but started watching Iowa. Once Iowa got a lead, I felt comfortable enough to flip it onto that game. I was honestly shocked for a while at how close Indiana was able to keep it. And I think that's the biggest difference in good versus great teams is good teams can hang around to start, but as the game winds down, do you have the depth pieces to be able to sub in and keep guys fresh? Do you have the coaching and the strategy to be able to ensure you're not allowing mistakes to happen? Like at some point it is on the players, don't get me wrong, but the best coaches, the best schemes are the ones that make sure that you're putting guys in positions to win and not make those mistakes, which is, like you just said, run it back, that exact game plan that you have to have if you're going to play Ohio State. It's not like Ryan Day is a good coach. Like we know that he's extremely overrated. He's incapable of getting the big wins when he needs to get them. But maybe now that, everything is a little bit more evened out in terms of a 12-team playoff instead of 4, right? They're able to get a little bit more momentum banging up on some of these, middle of the road teams like in Indiana, who
I think Indiana's above middle of the road,
but like middle of the road in terms of like playoff teams.
Okay.
Of the top 12, Indiana is probably closer to 12 than they are to 4,
Yeah.
That's just the way that it goes. But
yeah, I think my takeaway of this game was that at home, Ohio State was the better team, and they were 14.5-point favorites. But Indiana did themselves no favors, especially on special teams. That's an area that you have to excel at if you're going to be under talented in a game like that.
Yeah. Say what you want, but even Indiana, they came out and they shot themselves in the foot a couple times in the first half. I think they had a fumble turnover, but even then they were down 1 score at half. It was 14-7, so they were still more than in it. And that was kind of a recurring theme I've noticed with this Ohio State team. I know when Iowa was playing them about a month ago or so, we were down, was it 3-0 at half or something like that? So 1-score game, maybe 10. But, these guys aren't coming out quickly. So they're obviously, to Ryan Day's credit, he's making changes in the locker room at half and going out and implementing them, and he's seeing success with it. So that's why this game kind of got out of hand in the second half. But, maybe something to keep your eye on as we get into, conference championship, playoffs. Obviously, Ohio State is going to be in the mix. Maybe a potential fade the first half team.
I like that. I like that a lot. And I think on the flip side of that is just saying, like, hey, this is an Ohio State team that used to try and get out fast and go fast, and now they're a little bit more grind them out with really good skill players at the same time. So good win for Ohio State at home. Took care of business. Did what they needed to do. I quickly want to talk about a bet I have on that game. I know nobody gives 2 fucks typically about these bets, but this was about the biggest yanker of all time, and I'll explain why. Teased up Indiana to 17.5 points. Indiana's going to backdoor. There's 1:30 left. They scored a touchdown. I'm freaking out. I'm fired up. They go for 2. It doesn't even make sense for them to really go for 2 in this situation. So now I'm sweating it out again. They get the 2-point conversion. Okay. Juiced up to the max. Let's go. Kick an onside kick. Don't recover it. Ohio State running back gets handed the ball. He breaks one immediately. All they have to do is basically just run the clock out. There's not a whole lot there. Breaks it immediately. He's running towards the end zone. Okay, I'm done. It's over. They're going to cover the 17. He goes down at the 2-yard line. Okay, now what's next? Are they going to shove it down their throats and put it in the end zone? Google me, Signetti. If you didn't say a lot of this shit, I don't think they would have done it. But they go ahead. They kind of do like a half QB sneak the first play to make sure the clock's running. And at this point, I'm like, okay, Signetti has 2 timeouts. He's not taking a timeout. Is he going to run the ball in or not? If you guys remember, there was earlier in the year, Texas Pete and I took a Will Howard ladder, right? And he had a chance to put that ladder into Mr. Crab dollar signs in our eyes, and he slid down. He slid the fuck down. What does he do with 30 seconds left in a game that's taken away? Like, it's over. The game's over. They're not calling their timeouts. He snaps the ball and he shoves it into the end zone. I lose. That's the worst beat I think I'm going to have all year, just in terms of the snip, snap of it all. It's not easy, It's not easy.
It's not at all. There is, if I may, Texas Pete hit a bet this weekend, and it was a fun one. So I'm sure a lot of our listeners can relate to this, but that Saturday morning feeling of elation when you hop in the group chat FaceTime with the boys, you're say, let's cook something up. So we go ahead and did our smart play. Obviously it didn't hit. But then we're also like, let's throw a 3-leg dog parlay. So it comes down to me last weekend. I don't know if anyone saw the Illinois Rutgers game. Did anyone catch the ending of that?
Yeah.
Absolutely fucking electric.
Fireworks.
So just to give you just a quick rundown against all odds on what we looked at. So they were going back and forth in the fourth quarter. At one point, Illinois was down 9 in the fourth. So they score, whatever. They score again and they take the lead. So they're up 6. And then Rutgers has the ball left with like 2 minutes, and they drive down and score with 1 minute and 10 seconds remaining to take the lead. So then Illinois, I have them at the money line. I need them to come down and go ahead and score a touchdown. So they get down there. There's about like 4 seconds left, and they have a 58-yard field goal into the Wynn Outdoor Stadium. So they go ahead and kick the field goal. It was nowhere near fucking close. But the Rutgers coach called a timeout right before the play snap. So he got to see it. So then Bielema saw, head coach for Illinois, he saw that, said that his kicker wasn't even close. So they said, fuck it, we're going to go for it. 4 seconds left. Illinois scores 41 yards away from the end zone at the buzzer to go ahead, take the lead there, cash the bet for the boys. Just an absolutely electric moment that you're sweating out throughout the group chat. I think there was probably 60 texts every single 2 minutes about that game because it was on Peacock, which is incredibly freaking lame because I don't have access to it. I have YouTube TV. So my buddy Josh had Peacock up for us, so he was giving us the updates. But just one of those good, makes you feel good about yourself. Everybody hits. So hopefully we got a lot more of that coming up to us in this week's slate.
Yeah, this was an awesome weekend for that. I mean, there's just something about the Bulls. It's fun to win, but when the boys win, if you gave up the winner on a long shot, if it's your winner, oh boy, there's just no better feeling. So maybe we'll give you guys a little leads for some of that later in the episode. Before we get to the picks, I do want to say for Chisholm's birthday, for Thanksgiving, there's a lot of people that need recognition around here, around home. And I just want to say, first of all, I love you, man. And I love you, Old Chisholm. I love you, Texas Pete. And I love you, Jolly, the Green Giant. They're my favorite brand. I know this is a French's sponsored podcast. Maybe you like some onion with your green beans. But I want to give a shout out to Jolly, the Green Giant. I love you, man. Your green beans, throw them in the microwave. Give them a quick 30 seconds to a minute. Always do the job. And they always come out just tasty. Little greens on your plates goes a long way. Recently did a slow cooked 8-pound pulled pork, and it took longer to cook than expected, so nobody was able to eat it the first night on Sunday, and that means I was left with a lot of pulled pork. And you know what? You need some greens with those pulled. You need some greens with the pulled pork. God damn it!
Have you just been housing pork for the last week then?
Dude, oh man, the last 3 meals, and I'm gonna eat some after this.
I was gonna say you don't even need to go sit in a sauna. You're just gonna be sweating for the next foreseeable future, no matter what you do. It's just coming out of your pores.
Yeah, I think the recipe cook time is probably for a 3 or 4 pounder, but your boy came home with the full 8.5, so probably didn't account for enough time in the cooker.
I'll tell you what, I'll give an I love you, man, out to the folks at home who are leftover kings. This is your time of year to just absolutely dominate the fridge. Like Mr. Jones mentioned, housing all that pulled pork. You're going to eat it until it's gone. So by the time you get to your third go-around, a third straight meal of the same thing, it gets a little tiring, but you just got to push through. You got to find that second gear, really kick it into overdrive and keep going. And this is what this week's for. And I think a lot of us listening at home, your family's counting on you to go ahead and delete a lot of that leftover. So go ahead, step up and do your part.
I love you, man. So I'm gonna go ahead and send one out to Ryan Clark of all people. I just feel like Ryan Clark is a guy that single-handedly probably is responsible for like the player safety initiative in the NFL. Some of the hits that he was laying back in the day. I remember you always talk about Polamalu, James Harrison, as far as like, some of the studs of that team, but the guy laying the boomstick every single week was Ryan Clark. He never played in Denver, because of some sickle cell action that he had going on. All altitude was never too good for that. And that leads me to my ultimate I love you, man, is altitude cardio and training. It's something that I feel like we don't appreciate enough, sending our Olympic athletes out, into the mountains and saying, go build those lungs up, and then go overseas and just, put some belt to ass. Love cardio about as much as, I love domestic violence, which is not at all. But I tell you what I do love, making it a little bit harder so that you feel like you earned something on that Thanksgiving morning. So to all of our Colorado, our Rocky Mountain listeners, take advantage of that. And also, I love you, man.
Yeah, I mean, I like that one.
It's a little out there, but I just needed to get that off my chest.
No, that's good. I'm just lots of thoughts swirling around my head right now.
Yeah, I do that. Yeah, my bad.
Jatavian Sanders, this guy, Texas tight end, rookie, stud. He went to the hospital this weekend. Head injury, neck injury. Hope he's doing okay. Left, the Chiefs Carolina Panthers game, plays for the Panthers in the second quarter. You hate to see it. Before he did go out of the game, he did get 3 catches, which is how many I needed for a 10 to win $520 parlay. So that one hit. And you know what? He got discharged out of the hospital. Things are looking A-okay. He's probably not going to be back this week, but they don't seem to be out for too long. And so Jatavian Sanders, I fucking love you, man. I love you, man.
Yeah, he took a weird one. His neck just didn't look like it moved the right way.
It was a cinder block, dude. He needs to get with the wrestlers over there in Iowa City and get some neck shit going on.
Watching wrestlers do
that's going to be famous in your circle for the rest of your life.
Oh yeah, dude, that's the one
people are going to know. That's going to come in handy at trivia down the road some days.
Gave that one out $10 to the roommate Spencer Clark, host of the Box Out Boys, previously known as, and that's one that we gave a high five to each other when that one hit, and afterwards, about a minute or two after the adrenaline wore off, we said, wow, that was a lot of palm on that high five. Our hands kind of hurt. When you're just too excited and you just get all palm, you're like, what the heck was that about? Yeah. You know who I don't love? This is the opposite of I love you, man. I hate you, man, is the 6th grade kid. He's maybe a little bit of a weirdo. He eats a lot of Wheaties. He's on the O-line, and he's high-fiving everybody just too hard. He's just giving out too hard of high fives. You don't even want to high-five him. It's just not the move. But
piggybacking off that, too hard of a high five guy, you hate to play golf with him. You hit a big putt for birdie, or you just save par, and then you just get this monster collision in your hand. It just throws you off the rest of the round. Maybe that's my weak mentality, but there's definitely something to it. So if you got a heavy-handed guy that you're playing golf with, you're probably not dapping him up after a big putt.
I was going to say, not only that, but the opposite of that guy is the guy who waits until the putt actually goes in to say good putt. I love you, man. I love you, man. Opposite of what you just said. I think not only is it important in the context of saying good putt, but also you're a real one if you don't even say good. You just kind of cut as many words out as possible. You just putt. Ball.
That's kind of like the abbreviated putt. Or I can't do it as well as you. That's almost like what the opponent says if you're like a 2v2 match. There's a little bit of like can't believe you just made that putt, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
You guys got any other I love you, man? I mean, I think we're a little light. We only got one out of each of you so far.
I'll give an I love you, man out to the family member at the holiday party, holiday gathering that knows all the channels, no matter what cable provider the host has. This one is specifically tailored to my older brother. Doesn't matter if you got DirecTV, Comcast, Xfinity, Spectrum, YouTube TV. He has it dialed in. He knows the channel for you, so you're able to navigate exactly where you want to go when you need to.
Just a living human guide. I love that.
Yeah.
That is good stuff. I was gonna say one that I wanted to give number 26, Teddy Roosevelt. This was, funny enough, actually, how Texas Pete and I became friends was just the man in the arena speech, I think. But then also, some of the stories and I guess the lore ultimately that comes with Teddy Roosevelt. The guy's got a lot of stories. I love you, man.
I got one. Here we go. Went and saw Gladiator last night. It was a lovely AMC, a wonderful theater. I don't know if you guys have been to the movies recently, but they're going to remind you that you're at the movies like 6 times before the movie starts. Like they have like 5 different commercials about being at the movies, and then they're like, and now, like, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching this movie. You're seeing it the right way. You're seeing it on the big screen. But I digress. It was a beautiful theater. And they have recliner chairs. They go way back. They're super wide. Even a heifer could fit in these fuckers. And they got heated seats to them too now. This is like a new feature. I've never had the heated seats. So I was stoked. I was feeling good. 2.5-hour movie. Gonna get relaxed. Gonna get cozy. The guy next to me comes in right when the movie's starting. Older black man, had a nice little vest on, and he comes in. He sits down. He sits perfectly at 90 degrees. Never even touches his recliner button. Never touches the heater. Never, his back doesn't even ever touch the back of the chair. He sits on the edge of his seat and watches the entire movie with just a very just intense gaze and just was so locked in. And honestly, it made my movie theater experience even better. So I was laid back, kicking him like, here's this guy. He's watching this like it's life or death over here. And I love you, man. He fired me up. He was a beast. He was a real beast, and he was dialed in on Gladiator. He loved the monkeys, all of them,
Yeah.
even the bad ones and the good ones. If you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. It's a pretty good flick.
Great flick.
What
Guys,
I was gonna say, same guy probably that would, if someone's on their phone, he's gonna call him out. Like
No.
he's not scared.
No, that seems more like he is watching with intensity, but it was more of like intense amusement. I don't know if that makes more sense. It wasn't like intense.
It does.
It's like he was more just like so excited and amused, but also just like so dialed in.
Yeah. I love that, actually.
I'm a big stickler. If people are on their phones, it's like
Get
the
off
thing
your phone.
I hate most about myself probably is that I don't have like the confrontational attitude to just like really bitch out somebody at the theaters. But it makes me so mad inside that they have their phone out at the theaters. And then I get mad again at myself for not being man enough to just be like, put your fucking phone away. So it's a double whammy. All right. Should we roll?
Let's roll.
Let's roll.
Rivalry week.
Feast week. All right, Chis, I'm just going to kick it to you. Just lead us off with wherever you want to go. You get the first pick honors. And then I think Texas Pete will probably just be kicking it around from then on out.
Love it. Well, let's take this in chronological order then, because I know Thursday, Thanksgiving Day, it's typically a day that you're going to sit around and watch the Lions, the Vikings, and then whoever the hell Roger Goodell and company want to throw at you. Not this year. I don't know if you guys have seen the previews for this the Dallas Giants game. It doesn't look great. I think everybody's kind of assuming, yeah, this is going to be nap time. There's one college game on, though, that I do want to highlight because, God, do I love betting on this team. They've done me well so far this year. That would be the Tulane Green Wave. We hammered on them earlier in the year about this same number when they were going up against Navy, because this is a team that is really hoping that Boise State isn't that G6 school that makes it in. I think Tulane is one of those schools that could take this spot should they continue playing at the level they have been. And they have a matchup against Memphis. This is an American Championship preview potentially. I think it's probably going to be Tulane and then maybe Army at this point. But if Memphis gets a W, we'll see. I guess I'd have to double check and see what the American standings look like. That's on me. Won't have that happen again in the future. But the Green Wave, all they need is just one upset in that Mountain West championship, and they could be the 5th highest ranked conference champion. if they can continue running up the scores like they have been, I think they understand the assignment. They need to make a lot of noise, and it shouldn't. It's a little bit of a surprise for me because Memphis did a great job in the portal, but they're 2-5-1 against the spread in the last 2 months. They've been just falling short of expectations that bookmakers have set for them by full field goal on average every single week. They're missing the spread. And this one is coming in at 13.5 for Tulane. I think they're going to be able to come in and get enough going early so that they can just kind of control pace and just run the ball. Mekhi Hughes is incredible. So I'm going to rock with the Green Wave on Thanksgiving Day. You love to see it. I'll have a Friday play here for us as well, but wanted to start off in chronological order and with the good folks of Tulane.
Chisholm, would you be excited if a Big 12 team got left out of the playoff to include a G16?
If it was to include a G6 team, yes, I would. If there was 2 G6 teams in the playoff, oh man, that's what we signed up for. Like that is why we expanded it to 12. I didn't expand it to 12 for 5 SEC teams, 4
right.
Big 10 teams, right? Like I want to see representation across conferences, and no taxation without representation, Jack. We said that last week, but now Texas Pete's heard it too. So rally the troops.
All right. Well, I got a fun one on Friday. I'll tell you what.
Okay.
Hold up. Before I give out a pick here, this is probably the greatest week of football that we have of the year. I mean, we have football pretty much on from by the time you're listening to this through the end of the year, pretty much.
Akron and Toledo are playing right now.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like, you get to sit down, your work slows down, you're able to just watch it. It's acceptable to have it on the TV at all times. It's what everyone looks forward to at your gatherings. It's just freaking awesome, man. And the fact that it's on at all times a day too. You don't have to wait for like the night slate to hit. Like we get noon games on Friday, and that's exactly what this game is. So we have Oregon State at Boise State. Spreads Boise -19, over-unders at 57. That's right. You heard me. Your 2024 Pac-12 champion, Oregon State Beavers.
Woo!
Squaring off with Boise. Yep. Oregon State took down Washington State last weekend as 12-point dogs to claim the Pac-12 title. Pretty pumped for them. I don't know if there's going to be a championship hangover coming for them this week, but I'd like to see them to keep the momentum going. But unfortunately, I don't think that's going to be the case. Oregon State just snapped a 5-game skid in the Pac-12 championship. And I think Ashton Genty and Boise State, they have no problem putting up numbies. They average 41 points a game, which is good for like 3rd in the nation. And there's a sizable spread of public money coming in on Oregon State at the +19. So I think we're just going to go ahead and zag there and lay 19 on Boise State.
Does Oregon State hang a banner?
They better. If
They
were
should.
smart, if they're social media, they should bare minimum on social media just blow it up. I mean,
If
we've been
UCF
talking about the
could,
Pac-12 championship, yeah.
they were claiming natties. They actually won the Pac-12 or the Pac-2.
What are you saying?
No, Chisholm, go ahead.
That was all I had to say.
Oh, I was going to say it is really funny because Washington State's had a pretty good year. They're
Not bad.
8-3 in the season, 0-1 in conference. Oregon State's 5-6 in the season, 1-0 in conference. You know how we make some of these concessions for conference champions to get into the playoffs, right? Based on where they finish. Even if Oregon State loses this game at 5-7, they should get a bowl. They should get a bowl placement because they are the Pac-12 conference winner. We did them dirty. Everybody knows that Oregon State and Washington State got absolutely fucked over by everybody around them. Give Oregon State a bowl game. Let them go out there. Let them play. Let the fan base travel to somewhere nice and warm this winter. And let's go Beavs, dude. And let's go Cougs for that matter. Always going to be rooting for those guys.
John Mateer is just a fun quarterback name. I don't know why. I just like it. I'm like, that guy, that's a guy that could have played quarterback, 100 years ago.
All right, I'll go ahead and I'll take a pick on Friday. I'm going to take Oklahoma State against Colorado. They're going to go on the road to the Buffs. 16.5-point dogs, but I actually think that's FanDuel. I think that you can get them at plus 17 on points bet. Kind of a nice number to have. Last week was Colorado's not Super Bowl, but they needed to win that game. And instead of a championship hangover, they could have more of a lack of championship hangover, I guess, for better words. 16.5, a lot of points. This Oklahoma State team has lost 8 straight. So I think, maybe it's a buy low opportunity. It doesn't get much lower than losing 8 straight. With that said, though, doesn't mean they didn't cover some of those games, right? They definitely have been covering a few of those. I don't know if you guys had a chance to watch that game last week. Did you guys see Shedeur Sanders almost lose his knee?
No,
Yeah.
I didn't watch that game, but no, go ahead. I saw another Shedeur Sanders clip that was mind-blowing to me.
Shedeur damn near lost his fucking knee to this Kansas team. What was blatantly a dirty hit? Never got flagged. It was dirty.
I'll say this. It wasn't clean, but also Shedeur needs to protect himself. Like you can't just be. He threw the ball and was hit a second later. Like that is, you can do that. That is football.
Text Pete, look this up while we continue and tell us if you think it's dirty or not.
I've just said it's not clean, but also like the burden of proof needs to be more so on offensive players to protect themselves from being hit. You can't just throw that and stand there like there's not a guy.
He threw the ball, the guy projectiles himself into his knees.
He was running at him before he threw the ball. Like he was close enough
the entire time.
He was close enough for like Shedeur had to have seen him. There's no way that he was just like,
if you watch the game, and I give credit to Kansas for playing this way, they played a rough and tumble. They said, we're going to out physical. We're going to be talking after the whistle. We're going to be hitting you after the whistle. But the point remains is that how does Deion approach this game? Last game of the season. I can see Shedeur being a bowl game opt-out. We'll see how that plays out. Who knows? But I think this is just a really sleepy spot for Rado. And I think Oklahoma State, as bad as they've been this year, 17 points. Just keep it close. And if not, they're going to backdoor cover for a split second and break my heart laters, a la Indiana. So we're going to go with OSU, 17 points. We'll see how that one goes. But it's on a Friday. Should be fun.
Hell yeah, dude. I'll sneak in here. I got 2 Friday plays. I believe that you guys will have something to say about both of these as well. First and foremost, let's just call it what it is. These are both Big Ten games, Big Ten West more specifically. This is my bread and butter. This is what I grew up on. This is my mac and cheese. It's my comfort meal, right? I sit down and I watch these games, not for enjoyment, but because it really just settles me down. It's like a nice cigarette after a good passionate love-making session. Here's the first one that we're looking at. It's Minnesota, and they're going into Camp Randall, which historically not a fun place to play. This year, the opposing teams have had more fun dancing to jump around. I said it. Minnesota has looked like one of those teams that has just sneakily gotten better every single week. They don't really have the best skill players in the world, so there's nothing that's ever going to be flashy and jumping out at you on paper to say that they deserve more respect. But as far as grit, as far as toughness, they embody that with some of the best of them. Wisconsin, on the other hand, hasn't really had any success offensively ever since Luke Fickell got rid of Phil Longo, which is pretty bad news for Wisconsin because they actually are now facing a top 20 defense in Minnesota. Minnesota has been excelling at limiting explosive plays. Wisconsin is kind of relying on them. Of the Badgers, 25 points that they scored at Nebraska last week, the final 8 came on a 58-yard pass, which is very, very important to note because if you're limiting things and you're preventing things from going over the top, you're holding Wisco to under 20 points, which most of the time in the Big Ten West, that gets you a W. I think that Wisconsin has won this game 23 years in a row, which is kind of insane as far as rivalries go. And it's the third longest rivalry streak in the country. And it's also, we're playing for the Paul Bunyan Axe, which is a phenomenal trophy. Not quite as good as Floyd of Rosedale, but it's a damn good one. TP, I believe that you were looking at this one as well before I start actually laying out the pick. I'd love to let you take the floor.
Yeah. So I'm going to double your sentiment there that this Minnesota defense is scrappy. They're going out and playing. And I think while their record, they're 6-5 on the year. Out of those 5 losses, only one of them was double digits. So, these guys are going to be going out and competing. And, that's including Penn State. That's including, Michigan and other teams out of the Big Ten as well. So they're going out.
It was just
no matter
Iowa
what they're playing. Yeah. So Iowa
Wow.
was the only double-digit loss that they had in the
Wow.
year. But notable hobo penis face, PJ Fleck. He has his team in a pretty good shape right now. These guys are getting hot at the right time. And I don't think it fares well with a struggling Wisconsin team who hasn't won in over a month. So I think Minnesota, I think they get the job done here on the road. I'm going to be taking them at the spread as well.
I'm not on this game, but Minnesota's been playing some pretty good ball. Even if they've lost, they've been playing good ball. But it'll be interesting. Wisconsin needs this game, needs it. Fickell in year 2, missing a bowl game at a prestigious program like Wisconsin. We'll see. I mean, year 3, it's just setting up to be the do or die year for Fickell.
Not looking great so far.
Taking here?
My main play here is actually the money line. I understand that they're getting points. I'll take the points, but I think they win this one outright. I'm gonna be more surprised if they don't. So,
dude, I'm gonna take Minnesota with you guys. Let's just ride this together. Like, what has Wisconsin done the last month that inspires you besides that Oregon game where they kept it close at home? We said it a couple weeks ago. I mean, I guess I missed on that Oregon game, but we're going to ride with you guys. We're going to ride with the Gophs.
Here we go. Other one.
Go ahead, Chisholm.
There's a second Big Ten West and the Heroes game. Iowa, Nebraska. Former Big 12 North. Iowa, Nebraska. This has been a staple. You plan on it Black Friday every year. Not sure how much longer that's going to last. Actually, I recall there is discussion of that game not occurring on Friday after Thanksgiving anymore. I don't really know. All I know is that it is this year, and that's all that matters. This is just a gross game on paper. You got God knows who, like Jackson Stratton, right, is Iowa's quarterback. He's our 5th string transfer out of Colorado State. Never played there either, but still looks better than Deacon Hill, and honestly, he might be better than Petrus, who I will touch on a little bit more later. In this one, this is 2 teams that have had, I guess Iowa's been more of a roller coaster. Nebraska's just kind of been on the downhill slide for the entire back half of the year. I don't really feel confident taking one way or the other, especially with this being at Kinnick, but I do feel good about going back to my roots here and throwing on the under. This is something we haven't been able to do as much this year, thanks to Tim Lester. He ruined a once great thing. But 39.5 feels like a lot of points for a game that's basically being played in December in Iowa City, Iowa, against 2 teams that are going to want to just out physical the other one. And I mean, this is Raiola's first time. This will be Raiola's first time in Kinnick. If he doesn't know, he's about to. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah,
it's going to be a defensive game.
Hopefully we get the fans out there yelling "Hawk, Hawk, Hawk" as one of our favorite Hawkeyes of all time. I mean, there's a handful on this team that I have a huge affinity for, but Jay Higgins is probably at the top of the list. Dude's just a certified pro all around. Great leader, great teammate, by all accounts, great son. And I'm excited to see him play his final game at Kinnick Stadium along with a handful of others. KJ2, Castro, Lachey. I don't know if you guys saw this. Lachey's dad is the radio announcer, I think it is, for Ohio State football. Hasn't missed an Ohio State football game in like 15, 20 years. He's going to be missing his first one to come out and celebrate, Luke Lachey's senior night. Stories like that, that are just prime college football there. It is going to be a cold one. Rayola looked a lot better with Holgerson the previous week against Wisconsin. It was interesting. Holgerson had a quote. He said, I remember when I was on the offensive coordinator side for Texas Tech back in 2002 playing against this Iowa football team, and the defense is pretty much still the same, which is it's nuts to think about. But Iowa with Kirk and Phil Parker have basically been running the same base defense for 20-plus years. So, you can try and solve for it. Nothing's changing, but with the players they have, it's still going to be a tough test for the freshmen. I don't have any bet on this game, but it is a great Black Friday tradition. 6:30. A lot of times this isn't a night game either, so that's a little bit of a mix-up to Texas Pete's point. It's going to be a cold one. Let's see. Texas Pete, you got a game for us, bud?
Just going into the game this weekend. That's right. Of former years, it was probably game of the year, but given one of the teams can't figure out who to play at the quarterback position, it's not going to be as enjoyable from a viewing standpoint, but nonetheless, it's one of the greatest rivalries we have in college football. That's right. That's going to be Michigan at Ohio State. Ohio State is 20.5-point home favorites, over-unders at 43.5. I wish this Michigan team were more competitive because then Ryan Day would actually be coaching for his job. I think a fourth straight loss to Michigan would ultimately cement him. He'd be out in the season no matter how many times they make the playoffs. But lucky for him, they're pretty much playing 10 on 11 this week because Michigan doesn't have – I think Davis Warren is taking snaps for him again this year. But they just don't have a competent quarterback, so it's not really anything you can compete with. I do have a play on this game. I think there's going to be bad blood, and I think we caught a glimpse of that last week with Ohio State pushing it in with a minute left when they handily had the game in hand. I think and I hope that they keep that kind of running, saying I think they have a chip on their shoulder, and I want to, hopefully it'll play well into our pick. But we're going to be I'd take an Ohio State team total over 31.5. But given that the over-under is only at 43.5, I'm going to be opting for that. Hopefully we can get a fluke player or two on Michigan's side to go ahead and put some points on the board. But regardless, I think that Ohio State's going to be trying to run up the score here. So we're going to be taking over 43.5 in the game this weekend. What are your guys' thoughts? This is obviously one of the biggest matchups we have of the season. It's always played at noon. It's tradition unlike any other. I have some friends that are close to me that are big Ohio State fans. So every single year growing up, we would go over to their house. They'd have a big party for it. You guys have anything going on for this game, or what are your thoughts going into it? I know it's not as highly anticipated as we might hope, but nonetheless, you got to give it up for a rivalry game.
21 points is a lot of points in a rivalry game. If Ryan Day finds a way to lose this game, did you see his quote? I don't know. I might have missed this with the quick break there. Did you talk about Ryan Day's quote about losing to Michigan is one of the worst things that's ever happened to him?
I didn't catch the quote. What is it?
It's an unbelievable quote. He goes, losing to Michigan these last few years, I hear what our fans say. I know I've let them down. It's one of the worst things that has ever happened to me. Probably the worst thing that's ever happened to me in my life. And then after that, maybe lose my father. So he wants this one bad. So he wants this one really bad.
It's a pretty good quote. That's what I want out of my football coach. Do you think it's going to be a contest, though?
I don't
think there's any world where Michigan is able to stay competitive here. And so what would that look like? Yeah.
Michigan's just they just don't have the offensive firepower to be able to hang in this game. They're like on their best day, they could be a good Iowa team, like an Iowa team from previous years. I feel like this matchup, and it's just if your offense isn't going to consistently move the ball, eventually Ohio State's going to start to put up points. I could see this being like a 35-14, which would be good for your over. Texas Pete, I could also see it being, Michigan still has about 3 or 4 first rounders on defense.
Yeah,
it could still be, a 24-7, right? Like, I don't know. I just don't see this being competitive, though. 21 points has to be the biggest spread in this series in a long, long time.
All right. Well, why don't you guys go ahead and pick one of your other favorite rivalry games we have this weekend?
Yeah, I got one. Let's go down to Alabama, dude.
There we go.
Auburn at Alabama. Auburn's plus 11.5. I'm not a huge Peyton Thorne guy. He's a frustrating player to watch. I think Auburn fans simultaneously pull out their hair and jump off bridges when they see this guy dropping back in the fourth quarter. I don't know. Maybe that's a little dramatic coming off a big win against A&M. And maybe I'm selling too low on Bama, but what about that team gives you an 11.5 point favorite in a rivalry game like this one? This Auburn team, Hugh Freeze is trying his best to turn around. I don't have a lot of underlying statistics. I just know that these two teams aren't that far apart. And Auburn every week has been kind of like the Vegas, I don't know, the Vegas pony. Like every week the lines have been slanted in Auburn's favor. And maybe I'm missing something this week. But we're riding Auburn. I wish I wrote down more stats for you guys. I went to bed last night. I don't know if you guys do this. I couldn't fall asleep last night. And I was just kind of running through the college football slate and thinking about what happened this past week. And I just came out of it with an aberration of, hey, I'm betting Auburn. I don't really care what the spread is. And I might play the money line, even in Tuscaloosa. Last year, go ahead.
I was just going to say they had a pretty exciting win last week. You think that they used all their magic up for the season?
I don't think you can ever not get up for this game if you're an Auburn or Alabama team.
Especially Auburn.
And I think that Auburn last year, they should have won that game. If you guys don't recall, Jalen Milroe, the play of the season, throwing that last second pass. And so this Auburn team has that still, in the back of their minds too. And I'm sure that's, not easy to put away. And they got that, that motivation from last year saying, hey, last year's Auburn team was worse than this year's Auburn team. And Alabama's team last year is better than this one. I just think you throw out the record books when these two teams play.
Throw out the record books, and 11.5 points is too many points. I'm afraid to see what would happen to Alabama head coach Kalen DeBoer's head quality meats. If they get their fourth loss on the season and losing the Iron Bowl as your first year, picking up after one of the GOATs.
He's got to be stressed. He's got to be real stressed.
God, the complete 180 going down in Tuscaloosa. I know we've talked about it a couple of times, but that big win against Georgia earlier in the season pretty much laments you as, okay, this guy can coach and he can coach at a high level and we're not really going to skip a beat. And then, fast forward 2.5 months and here we are now. And I can't imagine things are exactly, rosy for him down there. But obviously he's not on the hot seat yet. It's his first year. He doesn't have his guys. But you got to win the Iron Bowl.
Even more hyperbole, Texas Pete. Fast forward 2 hours. You guys remember that Georgia-Alabama game? Within an hour and a half, Georgia was right there and had that game for the taking after being down damn near 24-3.
Yeah.
So we're going to go with Auburn plus 11.5.
Don't hate it. I definitely don't hate it. I will be having eyes on the game. But I got no play on it as of now. Sorry, my computer was just buffering here. All right. Well, here's a fun game. Hits a little bit close to home for me. I definitely have a lot of coworkers who are alums of both of these universities, and that's going to be South Carolina at Clemson. Clemson is a 2.5 point home favorite. Over-unders at 49. I wouldn't want to, square up with this South Carolina team at this point in the season, let alone in a rivalry game. Clemson's playing for something. They have a shot to make the ACC title game. They're still in the playoff mix. I feel like they got everything to lose, whereas South Carolina, they need a lot of magic to go their way to be able to sniff anything into the playoffs. So I'm not going to put the nail in it yet. I don't have the definitive statistics that they're eliminated, but, they're getting hot at a good time, rifling off a couple of wins. But you guys have any action on this game here or anything you're looking forward to for the Carolina Bowl?
I'm excited. I think these head coaches are a little bit like fire and ice. A lot of similarities and a lot of differences between the two. So I don't know. It's just gonna be a good game. I didn't research this one. I just wanted to stay away because at my heart I want Clemson, but in my head I feel like South Carolina gets it done.
The future
Yeah,
that I have preseason want Clemson, but I agree. I think I'm leaning the Gamecocks now that I'm looking at it actually on the screen.
I mean, they're just one of the hottest teams also in football. Like they've just strung together some really, really nice wins. Their
5
backs
straight.
have been against the wall. And they look better because of it. I don't really understand how. But this is a team that just isn't backing down. I love Beamer as a head coach. Like the way he just talks about his players. I know he was kind of throwing some shade at Juice Wells, but he never outright said his name. He just was saying like this was a guy that didn't believe in this team and he's no longer here. And then Juice Wells obviously went and had one of the worst games I've seen a wide receiver have for Ole Miss in a while. But I think I'm leaning South Carolina and the under in this one. I feel like this will be more similar to the Georgia game Clemson played earlier in the year in terms of production on offense. Maybe not, 3 points of production because that's it's the end of the year now. It's not week 1 anymore. But I mean, Dylan Stewart and the rest of, South Carolina's defense, they're big, they're fast, they're physical. They are not an ACC defense by any means. So I think the Cade Klubnik versus Dylan Stewart matchup is going to be fun to watch.
God, you just made me so sad saying the season's coming to an end, man.
Yeah, I know.
But it's just getting started on another level too.
Yeah. I just love just rewind me back to like 2.5, 3 months ago when you're just looking at a monster slate of games. You got like 80, 90 to choose from here on any given Saturday. Granted, the games are getting higher quality, but I mean, just combing through a board and finding some value is what we do it for.
Verbal meme. Hey, look at us. Who would have thought? Not me.
Not me.
Just
should I go to another game? Is that
go to the game? Go to the
game.
Texas Pete's Texas game of the week.
It could be.
I mean, if this isn't it, I'd love to know what is. Texas and Texas A&M, folks, first time in 13 years now. I'm excited. This is a Texas team that started piss hot. Since then, not as hot, lukewarm maybe. Georgia really took some wind out of their sails.
What's the quote, Texas Pete? Warm bath, hard shower. What's the?
Cold faucet, warm shower.
Is that this game, Chisholm? Is this cold faucet, warm shower game?
I think that it is.
Warm faucet, cold shower. That's
yes.
What it was.
Yeah. Yeah. This I don't know. This one is going to be violent. Like this is going to be chippy as hell. I know Ohio State, Michigan is, kind of the game that, people, it's called the game. Not this weekend. This is going to be the game that historically would be Ohio State, Michigan, in my opinion. I'm not entirely sure which way to lean on it yet. I want to believe in my heart of hearts that Texas has been waiting on this one for a while. But, I mean, Mike Elko said it best last week. They're focused on Texas, and boy, did that show. So, I don't know. Do you guys have any major thoughts here? Is it more of just a looking forward to watching type of thing?
Outside of Georgia, this is definitely the best team Texas is going to be playing during this regular season. So I think it'd be a good glimpse into, how they may or may not perform during the playoffs or conference championship in the playoffs. But God, yeah, that quote that we're looking forward to Texas the other week, I should have taken the signs. We should have seen the signs. It was right there for us, and I just completely ignored it. Such a weak move by me. But no, I don't have any plays on this game. I like intentionally leaving some of these big slate premier games open just to kind of put the temperature in the room to see what everyone's feeling like who I'm watching it with. So I'll probably have action on it, but that's just going to depend on who I'm with, and if they can make a compelling argument for me. I'm very surprised that this is less than a touchdown spread. I think that's really a testament to kind of the atmosphere that goes on down in College Station, and they're definitely going to be getting up for it, given that they got kind of knocked out of contention last week. So it's like throw the kitchen sink at them type game for A&M. So hopefully we get, a couple of those teams that don't really have any postseason aspirations. They're doing some of those trick plays, those fun gimmicky plays. I'd love to see one of those to mix something up, if the plays are getting stagnant back and forth.
I don't know how true this is, but yes, College Station is ready for this rivalry to be back. It's supposedly the most expensive ticket for a regular season game in college football history. Now, that's some Texas A&M blog writing this, so take it with a grain of salt. You can't get in the game for less than $600, which is pretty nuts. They're going to be excited. I would say that Texas fans are also pushing that game, that price up, because they're going to be traveling down, headed in and watching that game as well. The more I hear you guys talk about, I'm just going to take Texas.
That's what I was thinking too. Is it too easy?
Is it too easy? Is it too obvious? It's a night game in College Station. But is this A&M team even good? That's what I've been asking myself. They beat a Missouri team that I don't think is very good. Great. They beat an LSU team that has been very up and down this year, not consistent. Cool. Who are the best teams that A&M has played this year? They played South Carolina, lost by 24, and they played Notre Dame and got manhandled through that game. That Notre Dame game was early in the season. This is a different A&M team. But, I definitely didn't have Auburn as a 43-point scorer last week either. So where's that defense that's, supposed to be kind of vaunted? We're going to go with just Texas. And this wasn't on my card to begin this recording, but we're going to just start stacking them up. This is going to be my biggest week of the year in terms of plays. And we're going to just ride the Longhorns.
All right.
I most likely will be as well. But
Arch is going to be starting, right, Chisholm?
I think the jury's still out on that.
Whoa, where have you been hearing this?
I just keep seeing people talking about Ewers' injury and what's going on with that. It feels like it's every week. It's will he, won't he?
Yeah, I think he was undergoing an MRI.
He's practicing. He's doing okay.
But yeah,
that's where I'm a little concerned. I do want some clarity. I almost want him to either be in or out.
I will say, I feel like Ewers has looked very different since his injury earlier in the year.
How's the Texas run game been lately, the Caps?
Not the best because, they lost their running back one in preseason, like summer ball. CJ Baxter would have made this team
filthy. I like it. I still like it. I think that honestly, the way they've handled business, I like it. I like it.
I don't hate it. I just know that A&M cares about this game from a fan base perspective more than UT. UT is rivals with Oklahoma. A&M is rivals with Texas. Like this is a ultimate little brother game. And so far this year, little brother has done very well for themselves, which makes me nervous.
5.5.
Doesn't make me nervous. I'm with you, Mr. Jones. I'm laying 5.5 with Texas.
I guess I'll squad ride it. I'll squad ride it. Fuck. Here we go.
We might be in trouble, boys.
Hey, what was the other squad ride we took earlier?
Minnesota?
I believe that was Minnesota.
Yeah, the Ghosts.
All right. Great game. Here's a game that Mr. Chisholm, I imagine, has been dying to talk about. We have a historic rivalry. These guys definitely get up whenever they play each other here. That's going to be Notre Dame at USC. USC is 7.5 points.
You're going to go somewhere else.
No, over-under is at 51.5. What do we got here?
I'll
open the floor for old Chisholm.
Notable
Irish lover.
Hammering Notre Dame. They're the best team at ATS since Freeman took over.
I'm hammering Notre Dame too. We've been riding them. Lately, and they say you ride a horse until it dies. If you're a bad owner, that is. Not everybody does that. But
look at this game on paper is very simple when you look at the teams last year where USC was better, with Caleb Williams. they have, since the LSU game, underperformed every week. The fact that they couldn't beat this Michigan team says everything to me, because Notre Dame is just a better version of Michigan this year. They're one of the best rushing teams in the country. The Four Horsemen are riding again with Riley Leonard, Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, and even Anais Williams broke off a 60-yarder, true freshman last week. He's mostly he's a pass blitz pickup guy. There's nothing about this USC defense that is capable of keeping up with or stopping this Notre Dame offense, unless Riley Leonard looks like he did week 2, week 3, week 4, even week 5. He hasn't looked like that in a long time. He's improved significantly week over week. And I think the other thing too is that no one talks about how good Notre Dame's defense has been, forcing turnovers, getting big third down stops, you name it. They're out there and they're doing it. They just swarm to the ball and it's fun to watch. I would probably play this honestly up to like 10. I would play this at 9.5. I think Notre Dame rolls.
I'm with Notre Dame as well. Here's a fun stat for USC. 6 FBS teams have led in every fourth quarter this season. USC is one of them. USC has 5 losses. The other 5 teams have 5 losses combined. Jesus Christ. Finish the game. Please. USC. My goodness. That makes me a little spooked, but the line isn't large enough to be entirely spooked, if you know what I mean. If this was like a 12-point game line, I'd be like, okay, 11-point line, sure. That's maybe a little bit too much for a team that's been playing competitive football all year. That's insane, guys. Like every single one of their losses, they've led in the fourth quarter. I imagine being an actual diehard USC fan, I wouldn't know what to do with myself.
No, I think the atmosphere is going to be on Saturday.
Mediocre at best.
At best.
Pretty fair weather out there in LA. They got a lot of better things to do. Those folks. They don't have the most diehard. Football is come and go for a lot of those people. And when it comes, it's awesome and they're super invested and they love it. But when it's Thanksgiving weekend and the team has got 5 losses, I don't think it's going to be much.
All right. I agree. And Notre Dame's still positioning for playoff seeding. They want to lock in that 5 seed if they can.
For sure.
They want to lock in their spot. If they lose this game, I don't know if they're in.
They got to get out.
100% agree.
Especially because USC is dog shit this year. Like exact same as every other opponent they had scheduled. None of their opponents that they had on the schedule this year reloaded.
Notre Dame and Penn State are kind of like Spider-Man meme. Like neither of them have a great win, and neither of them really. I mean, I guess India's a bad loss, but it's just the one.
I mean, Notre Dame has more wins against ranked opponents than any other team in the country.
Are any of those opponents going to be ranked at the end of the season, assuming A&M loses to Texas?
If A&M loses to Texas, I think maybe 2 of them will be. Isn't Louisville ranked? Did they sneak back in?
They do not think they are.
I don't think so.
Never mind. I don't know.
No, they're not. And Army's still hanging on to the 25 spot. But we're also talking about Army and Navy here. So let's throw that in the mix. Ranked opponent, it sounds good. It sounds sexy. Neither here nor there. But I did want to go into this conversation. So are we all in agreement here that if Notre Dame somehow loses this weekend, that they would be essentially out of the top 12?
They should be. As a Notre Dame fan, I would say they should. They should be.
A lot of that weight on the preseason scheduling and everything. So
if you didn't put it in one of those 2-loss, I would put in a 2-loss Iowa State over a 2-loss Notre Dame.
I would too, unfortunately. I think Notre Dame is night and day better, but if they don't prove it on the field, then who gives a shit?
Right. All right. I agree.
So winning you're in.
The game I thought Texas Pete was going to kick over, the one I want to talk about, Miami traveling to Syracuse. This is a game that's very important for a lot of New Yorkers that then vacation down in Miami. There's a handful of them from a certain community. But I'm just going to be upfront and tell you guys that hand up. I dropped the ball. Miami team totals, they've been up and down, but if I just stayed the course, rode the horse, as I last mentioned, I don't even think that's a real saying. I said it and I felt like an idiot immediately after. But we're going to ride this horse until it dies or I die with it. We're taking the team total of over 39.5. The best part is my boy, Kyle McCord, is going to be either throwing picks or throwing touchdowns, and either or are going to be great for this Miami team. Picks equals 6, and touchdowns mean Cam Ward has to keep putting up more points. Why is Cam Ward completely out of the Heisman discussion, boys? Why?
Oh man, that's a good question. I feel like it's a two horse race, both at a non QB position, but I feel like he fills the quota. I think he'll still make the trip to New York. I haven't checked the latest odds. I believe he's still up there in the top 4, right?
Yeah, and you know what's fun about this? I mean, Cam Ward has a chance. I mean, he needs to do something special, but he has to take over the Honda McCord spot, as Honda McCord's thrown for the most yards in college football, guys. Can you believe that? The same Kyle McCord. I mean, we all can because of this program that we put together, and we've been pounding that drum. But I mean, going into the year, what are the odds on that? It had to be astronomical.
It had to be juiced.
Which is awesome. Cam Ward is second in that ranking in terms of throwing for touchdowns. I think he leads the nation. Leading the nation in basically, second yards and leading the nation in touchdowns passed, while also, rushing for, let's see how many yards he's rushed for real quick. Sorry, guys. We're doing this on the fly. Not very many. Okay. But he's leading his team to possibly an ACC championship, and the first real relevance Miami's had in 20 years. I don't know where we just fell out of love with Cam Ward and how he isn't in the discussion. Why is it not a 3-man race? And does he have a chance to make a statement in the ACC championship game and get back into it?
I mean, yeah.
Neither of those other two guys be playing on that weekend.
I honestly think just the narrative got around that everyone's just sick of Vip being a quarterback award. So I feel like that kind of almost discluded him here. But then also you have I feel like what would be like a blue blood candidate in Dylan Gabriel, the number 1 seed, undefeated, the quarterback on the number 1 undefeated team. You know what I mean? So he's still in the mix too. He'll still be going to New York. So those are the top 4. It's Travis Hunter, Ashton Genty, Cameron Ward, and Dylan Gabriel. So that's who. God, does he have a chance though? Why are you talking me into this here?
I don't know if he does. I mean, I think the argument you could make is, hey, in 2021, this guy threw for 47 touchdowns. Best case scenario is throwing for 40 this year with the conference championship game.
Yeah. Okay.
So if it's not his best personal season, how is it the Heisman season? But we've seen this guy make the craziest winning plays in the clutch too. So, but we'll put a pause. We'll put a pin in that. Maybe save it for another day. But we're taking the over in the total. Texas Pete, you got something on this game too?
Boys, unfortunately, that day has come. I think it's the last time we're going to be watching Kyle McCord suit up and throw it around the Carrier Dome for Syracuse. He's been an absolute legend in the Rent Money universe. We've been talking about him all season. I'm sure you guys are sick of hearing about him. We'll tell you, I am not. I'm going to miss Kyle McCord. And he's going to go out slinging the rock just like he's been doing ever since he was freed from the prison that is the Ohio State sideline. Pair that with Miami's inability to shut the door on lesser opponents, and Cam Ward just wants to pad his stats for his Heisman campaign. That's why he keeps these team in the mix. I feel like this will be a nice little shootout. That'll probably you'll have to find on the ACC network at whatever house you're at this weekend. I know it's Thanksgiving weekend, but we're expecting fireworks, boys. That's right. We're going to be taking over 67.5 for this game. Jones mentioned it. Mr. Jones mentioned it. Cam Ward, Kyle McCord, both these guys, they just put up numbers leading the country in passing yards. So I don't see that stopping here in this fine weekend. It's almost like it's just an astronomical number that makes you laugh. So I'm just going to be just riding with it and taking 67.5 there.
I'm just going to put another pick out there and just say it, and then we can move on. Barring what happens with the quarterback position for the Navy midshipmen, There's a little bit of unknown there. There's a little bit of unknown, but Blake Horvath, if he plays this weekend, we're going to take Navy spread 2.5 and money line at ECU. This is a hot ECU team, 4 games winning streak. A Navy team that's kind of gotten beat around a little bit after a Cinderella start to the season. It's a buy low, sell high spot. I think this Navy team, they've played some of the best competition there is to offer in college football this year. ECU is not, and they're going to take that and they're going to, bring that level of experience that they've gained from those matchups and take on this ECU team with a bunch of vigor that is only representative of our Navy, United States Navy. So plus 2.5. I don't really have much more to say about this one. But when you see me betting on the little guys like this, it's usually a good tell.
All right, rivalry weekend.
I got 2 more picks.
Games circled here. Yeah, go ahead. Let's hear it.
Kansas at Baylor. Baylor is a sneaky on a 5-game win streak. Everybody wants to talk about how hot Kansas is. Kansas is going to be the favorite in this game, actually, on the road at Baylor. We're going to take Baylor plus 1.5 and the over of 61.5.
That's a zag?
It's a super zag, another buy low. Actually, not really buy low, but it's a buy high, sell high. And this Baylor team's been rocking and rolling, man. They only have 3 losses this year, and I believe it's to BYU, Colorado, and Iowa State all in a row. It was a tough slide. That was when all 3 of those teams were playing their best ball. BYU kind of had the black magic hand going a little bit, like everything was just kind of going their way in these games. But BYU is taking care of business against teams that are lesser competition. Kansas has proved to not be one of those teams, but that's an emotional whirlwind here for these Jayhawks. And eventually, you can go on a 3-day, you can go on a 4-day, you can go on a 5-day bender. Eventually, you're going to have a hangover. And this is the Kansas Jayhawks hangover. I got one more for you, Arkansas plus 3.5. Eli Dinkowitz is just a freaking nerd. Hate that guy. Hate Missouri football. Hate the Tigers. They shouldn't be ranked 23rd. They haven't beat anybody. And this is the weekend where, Arkansas is going to knock them off and get them out of the rankings once and for all and for good to finish the season. This is just simply an emotional bet. Pittman's got the Razorbacks rocking and rolling. Not really. I just think these are 2 mediocre teams, and we'll see what happens with this one. I wouldn't necessarily trail your boy on this one, but if you wanted to tail, you're more than welcome.
All right.
Shall we tie a bow?
Yeah, you got birthday celebratories to do there, Chisholm.
Yeah, I had to go split a G. Looking forward to that.
But not a 7-gram rock.
No, we're done with those. It's bad for you, and you're not finding any favor with God doing that as well. So I don't really. I mean, do we want to go through all of our picks, or do we just tell people to just go to our Twitter or check out the graphic?
Yeah, it's fine by me, man.
Mr. Jones, what do you think?
If I set a timer for 2 minutes, you think we could get them all out in under 2 minutes?
I do. I personally do.
All right, let's start with you then, Texas Pete. Timer's starting now.
Little Friday game for you. We're going to have Minnesota plus 3 on the road in Camp Randall against Wisco. And then we are going to be taking Oregon State at Boise State. We're laying the 19 on Boise State as our zag. Oregon State's coming off the Pac-12 championship, so I think this is a good sell high moment, if you can call it that. Michigan, Ohio State, the game. I'm going to be taking over 43.5. I think Ohio State has some bad blood and unfinished business. They really want to capitalize on this moment. I think they want to run up the score as well. And then Miami at Syracuse. This is the Firework Bowl. We're going to be taking over 67.5. I'm laying 7 on Notre Dame at USC. We already just talked about that game lately. And then lastly, for the premier game of the weekend, the night slate, I'm going to be laying 5.5 at Texas on the road in College Station.
War Eagle. We all know the story of War Eagle. How cool is it? At Bama plus 11.5. Miami team total. Ride that horse. 39.5 over. Arkansas plus 3.5. Eli Dinkowitz is a nerd. Notre Dame minus 7 at USC slut. Notre Dame minus 7. Kansas at Baylor. Baylor plus 1.5 over 61.5. UConn. Oh, this is one I missed. Let's go. Okay, UConn minus 10 at UMass. The Minutemen suck. That was a weird game last week that they put up 21 points. They're due for they're gonna get mollywopped. Texas minus 5.5 at A&M. Minnesota plus 3 at Wisco. Navy at ECU. We're going to take Navy -2.5. And I think that's all of them.
That's such a revenge bet. That's just
OSU. OSU at Rado. We got Oklahoma State +17.
Did you just call Oklahoma State OSU?
Oklahoma State University.
Okay. That's just a hate bet, though, going back to the UMass. You're just pissed because you laid 42.5 on Georgia, and they were only up 10 in the fourth quarter. They ended up winning by like 35 or something.
You could obviously tell that the UMass team was getting beat down. They've played Mississippi State. They played an overtime against Liberty, and then they played Georgia. Like, they're just a beat-up squad. They're 2-9. They don't really have a whole lot to play for. UConn's 7-3. They're the better team, and they're going to just take care of a beaten-up and sad UMass.
They have a lot to play for. They're joining the MAC next year.
It's a rivalry game too.
Edition.
All right, Chisholm, no timer on you, my man.
I was gonna say, I think UConn might be joining the Big 12. I saw in the future. I forget. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I didn't bring this one up, but we're fading the quarterback room that has Spencer Petras in it. Big fan of Colorado State covering 6 against the Aggies of Utah State. It's a big fade Aggies weekend.
That's why it's a rivalry week, dude. Those are the games that are just huge for their alumni that we don't even necessarily pick up on. Yep.
And we're going to keep it rolling. We did throw on Notre Dame. I think are they -7 or -7.5? I don't really care. I'm taking it either way, up to 9.5. Minnesota, we're hammering the money line, but we're also going to dabble in the fine arts of the spread there as well, getting them at +2.5, +3, whatever we can get. Tulane, Green Wave should have a fun Thanksgiving. I got them covering 13.5 against Memphis. Iowa hosting Nebraska. Big Ten West, never die, under 39.5. Squad ride also on Texas to cover 5.5 going into Kyle Field. And then I have this as a lean on the card right now. Might make it an official play. Big fan of South Carolina +3 and the under against Clemson of 50.5.
All right. I love it.
And that's all I got. Yeah. But to wrap up this pod, just one more solid. I love you, man. I guess 2 more. First and foremost, anyone listening, I love you, man. Appreciate all the support this year. It's crazy. We're wrapping up. I guess essentially the final week of the regular season here, getting ready for conference play and conference championships. But also to Texas Pete, to Mr. Jones, and even you, D, man. I love you, man. I love you guys. It's been a fun year. First year getting TP all the way in. One of the best decisions we've ever made. Especially if you're, talking production meeting efficiency, that's skyrocketed this year.
Texas parlay of the week. Is Texas has to be a part of that Texas Pete? No, or Texas pick of the week.
We'll finalize it on the graphic that we post on the Instagram account. I got to really think about it because Texas has burned me a couple times now.
Yeah, we'll forgive them if they can pull it out this week, but that is gonna do it. For week 14 preview here at the Rent Money Podcast, part of the Pop Off Podcast Network. I love you once again. If you're listening to this, I love your parents if they're still together, and even if they're not.
Dead or alive.
I hope everybody bingo. I hope everybody has a great, safe, relaxing, and profitable Thanksgiving week. I look forward to hearing back from some of the listeners, seeing who was tailing or who was fading,
who was trailing, who was afraid,
afraid, yeah, whatever you want to say. But don't forget, Movember, we still got it going on. Check out the page, the links, all that good stuff is on my personal Instagram. That would be oldchisholm77. And folks, as always, this Thanksgiving, don't forget your bookie. All right. And when you remember your bookie and your thankfulness and your gratitude for them, why don't you go ahead and let them know that we say hi?
Happy birthday, old Chisholm.
Bow.